Hi YouTube, it's Lena, and I'm here today with a slightly different kind of video. Actually, very different kind of video than what I normally put up here on the old YouTube. But I was watching a video the other day from the channel Found Flicks about great horror movies that you can see for free or stream for free. And the thing is, while that was technically true, you still have to have, memberships to some of these places where you can stream these videos. Or they're like Tubi, where you can watch things for free, but they have ads on them. And quite frankly, I still highly recommend the video if you're into horror movies at all. I'll link it down below. It has some great suggestions. I'm now watching Channel Zero on Amazon Prime. I'm watching the first season of that, and it's been amazing so far. But I was like, if we're really gonna do free, I can do one better than that. So I'm going to tell you about some free movies you can watch on YouTube. I will link all of these down below. Some of them have ads on them. It just depends on, what the person decided when they put them up. They're all like really old movies that, when I say really old, most of them are about, honestly, 25 to 35 odd years old. They're stuff that I grew up watching. They were kind of what informed my love of horror movies. They're basically mostly slasher movies. I think they all might be considered slasher movies, honestly. But it's what I grew up loving, and when I discovered in the last couple of years that they were on YouTube, on and off, sometimes they get removed, sometimes they don't, because some of these are probably not quite in the public domain, but nobody really cares if they get uploaded to YouTube or not. So they've been on here for quite a while. So like I said, I'll tell you about them. I will link which ones the ones that I could find. There was one that I'm going to mention that used to be on YouTube, but now I can't find it, and that kind of sucks because it's part of a series. But yeah, let's get started. I even hung up a little bit of horror themed stuff back there that says Camp Crystal Lake. If you can't quite read it, I don't know if my camera's catching all of it. I hung it up just for this video. So anyways, first set of movies is the series that if you're a horror movie fan, like a big horror movie fan, you might be familiar with. It is the Slumber Party Massacre series. They're not up there with, like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street as far as famous is concerned, but if you're about my age, at least in your early to mid 30s or above, you grew up, say, with video rental places. And I'm not talking Blockbuster, I'm talking the home family-owned places where you rented like the old big box cassettes and stuff like that. I'm talking before DVD here. And Slumber Party Massacre were some of the movies that I rented. Now, I will admit, I probably shouldn't have been watching any of these movies, but because these people, you knew these people, they knew your families, they knew what your parents really cared about you watching and not, I got away with watching a lot of these movies. And I mean, probably shouldn't have, but at the same time, I came out pretty normal. I've never tried to stab anybody or anything like that, so I'd say I'm doing pretty good. But if you're familiar with these at all, you know that these were, I guess, helmed and produced by a man named Roger Corman, who, no matter who was directing or writing any of his movies, he had two sets of requirements. He wanted pretty naked girls, and he wanted lots of blood. Which, to be fair, is what the main horror movie audience wanted back in the day, because they were marketed towards older teen guys in their younger 20s, just a primarily male audience. Now, I don't know exactly where my love of horror movies came from. I think I just completely developed it on my own. I certainly developed it before the days of the internet being super popular. I mean, I say before the internet got super popular. I mean, I had the internet once I was in like either 5th or 6th grade. I think 6th grade. So I've had the internet at my home for a very long time. And I was watching these movies back when they were being aired on USA Up All Night, and Joe Bob Briggs and people like that were showing them. So there you go. Probably shouldn't have been watching them, but all three of these movies are available on YouTube. The first one was actually originally written to be a parody of these type of movies, but when it was made a little more straight. So if you watch it knowing that it's made to be a parody, you can tell it's a parody. If you're watching it just as a straight horror movie, you're probably not going to catch it as obviously. There are some moments where the girl eating the pizza with the poor dead delivery guy on the floor saying, when I get upset, I get hungry, and boy am I upset right now. It's something like that. And the other girls are just horrified at the girl reaching over the dead body of the dude to grab the pizza and start eating it. Those are moments where you can tell. No. Like I said, the first one's played relatively straight. The second one is borderline insane. Now, if you're somebody that follows the channel Dead Meat, which I actually do, where he does a kill count of a whole bunch of horror movie series and one-offs. He actually did Slumber Party Massacre, I think very late last year, and I was so excited because this is one of my old-time favorite series. He points out that the killer in the second one is like half normal, you know, crazy driller killer. All these movies feature power drills as weapons, by the way. And half kind of Freddy, Nightmare on Elm Street, get you in your dreams type guy, because one of the survivors from one, because it's actually a direct sequel despite the complete change in tone, one of the survivors in one starts dreaming of a rockabilly driller killer in her dreams that has a power drill guitar. And I think you can imagine from there how it goes. And as far as number 3 is concerned, it's really a sequel in name only, and it also features a guy killing people with a power drill. Honestly, it's definitely the lesser of the 3. It's kind of boring, honestly, but hey, we're all in quarantine right now, so if you ain't got nothing better to watch, I definitely do suggest watching all 3. I definitely recommend 1 and 2, and you can watch 3 if you want to. I've seen them all plenty of times. And related to these movies is Sorority House Massacre, also I believe produced by Roger Corman. Now, the first one is only very tangentially related to Slumber Party Massacre. Like, I think that they're kind of supposed to be like these spiritual sequels or something like that to them. But it's the same basic idea, but it takes place in a sorority house, not at a teenage. All these girls in these movies are definitely in their mid to late 20s. Some of them are probably my damn age, pretending to be teenagers. But it takes place with, you know, college age girls rather than, you know, 17, 18-year-old high school girls is what they're supposed to probably be. And it's not a driller killer, I think the dude kills people with a knife. I don't remember. I haven't seen this one as much, and it's not as known as the Slumber Party Massacre movies. Number 2 is where it gets kind of hinky. Are you familiar with the movies Silent Night, Deadly Night 1 and 2? Well, those of you in the know that have seen them both, or at least are aware of them both, know that number 2 actually takes footage from the first one and kind of re-edits it. Like the first 40 odd minutes of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 is just a rehash of 1 with a little bit of a voiceover now and then from a new character. Well, Sorority House 2 takes and edits footage from Slumber Party Massacre 1, but completely changes the story to fit the narrative of the haunted house that these new girls are going to use for their sorority. It's kind of bewildering and an interesting thing to just sit there and watch. If you've seen Slumber Party Massacre and then you go watch Sorority House Massacre 2, you're like, that's not what happened at all. Those people aren't even related, and you're saying they are. It's pretty hilarious for that alone, but if you're somebody that can find a little bit of humor in the absurd, or just has a relatively dark sense of humor like I do at times, I think you'll enjoy these movies. They're pretty hilariously bad, but in that kind of enjoyable way, a la, you know, Mystery Science Theater 3000, Riff Tracks, heckling the bad movies. You can see where my tastes lie. Alright, so point 3 is a movie called The Burning. Now, I didn't discover this one until much later in life. I discovered it probably only a couple of years ago. Somebody on one of the horror movie channels I watch referenced The Burning, and I'm like, what's that? Okay, Google. Oh, it's very much in the same vein as Friday the 13th, but they came out at about the same time. I don't think one was trying to rip off the other. I think it's just one of those killing teenagers in woods by a hidden disfigured man sort of deal. Now, The Burning, they reference a very old kind of urban legend-y type thing called Cropsy. I'm not super familiar with it, but he's kind of a pseudo boogeyman type thing. I don't really know the details of it, but apparently it's a well-known kind of urban legend in some parts of the US. But this movie is fairly well known for a couple of things. One, it features a very young Jason Alexander with hair. I know, that's how old it is. It's like, it came out about the same time as the original Friday the 13th, so that's how old it is. And he's playing like a teenager in the movie. I don't know how old he is in that movie actually, but he's playing a teenager. And the other thing that it features is a fairly infamous raft scene where somehow, defying all bits of physics, six odd people, either 6 or 8 people are killed by a guy, by Cropsy, standing in a next to the raft kayak coming down at people with a pair of gardening shears. Like, if you look up The Burning, one of the first things you turn up other than the movie is that scene, and it's hilarious. It defies all logic. But otherwise, it's just, you know, your typical hack and slash teenagers at a summer camp. You know, you've got some older camp counselors that I think are supposed to be like in their 20s, but I'm not entirely sure. And a bunch of teenagers that I think are supposed to be between like 13 and 17, although I didn't think you went to camp past about the age of 14 or 15. I could be wrong. I don't know. Next, I'm going a little bit older, but I discovered recently that this was actually on YouTube, so I figured I'd mention it. And it's a little relevant to right now in kind of a creepy way. It is a movie called The Crazies, and I'm talking the original 1973. I'm not talking the late 2000s, early 2010s. I don't know exactly when it came out remake, which the remake ain't that bad, but you know, it's not one of the worst of that era of horror movie remakes that are out there, which if you ever want me to talk about the worst ones of those, or even the best ones of those, I will happily do so. Whew, but The Crazies. So the idea is that and this movie will just throw you right into the deep end. Do not expect a first, like most movies do now, the first 20 to 30 minutes helps you get to know the characters, helps explain what's going on. No, this is in the 70s where they throw you right in the deep end, a la Dawn of the Dead. If you've seen the original Dawn of the Dead, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the idea is that the government accidentally let loose this scientifically created disease called Trixie. What an odd name for something that's going to kill a lot of people. And it either kills you or it makes you irreversibly kind of homicidally insane. Not everybody seems to turn homicidally insane, but the majority of people go full homicidal insane on it and just kill everyone around them. But they turn into batshit crazy maniacs, to be perfectly blunt. It definitely deals with some kind of disconcerting taboo manner with a couple of people in it, so this one might not be that great to watch right now, but I did discover that it was on YouTube recently. It is actually a really good horror movie. It's just a matter of if you're up for seeing a town going completely to shit after being tried to keep in quarantine as to whether or not you're up for it right now. I totally understand if people aren't up for that one. That one was a little nightmare inducing for me because I rewatched it like in the last month when I figured out it was on YouTube. But it is a good movie, figured I'd mention it. And finally, I got a kind of, I'm gonna talk about 4 movies here, but they're all related. It starts with the 1988 movie Night of the Demons. Now, if you are familiar with 80s horror movies, slasher movies at all, you are familiar with one of the stars of this movie, Miss Linnea Quigley. Gorgeous woman, really quite nice. She's just one of the horror movie scream queens of the 80s, and she has a big role in, this is one of her bigger roles, honestly, because a lot of times she's just, you know, the first girl that gets killed and stuff. She's actually in the original Silent Night, Deadly Night as the girl that is killed by being planted on a set of deer horns. So if you're familiar with that at all, there you go. But she's actually one of the main stars of the movie in this one, where a bunch of kids, instead of going to the Halloween dance at their local high school, decide to go to a local deserted funeral parlor. Okay. I mean, I can't say anything. If I had something like that in my town when I was a teenager, I totally would have went to it. I was that kid. Yeah, so. And throughout the night, most of them are either possessed by the demons that inhabit the house or murdered horribly. And this is the movie that infamously, a bunch of these movies are actually quite infamous, infamously features Linnea Quigley playing with the lipstick on her chest. And that is all I will say about that. But she met her husband because he's the one that had to do the plastic mold of her chest. So I guess something good came out of that. Now, this movie has 2 sequels and a remake. The 3rd sequel is on YouTube. It's honestly the most inferior one. It's alright. It's one of those things where if I ain't got nothing better to do and I'm on a horror movie kick and I've ran out of most of my other ones that I've rewatched, I'll watch it. Or if I'm on a Night of the Demons kick, I'll watch it. All 3 of the original movies feature the main character, Angela. That's not Linnea Quigley. That's the other kind of main girl in there that gets possessed. The second one, which isn't on YouTube anymore, unfortunately, it used to be, but now I can't find the damn thing. So I don't know if somebody put their, you know, stake on it or what, but, you know, whatever. I'm this close to buying myself a copy of it because I do really like these movies. I didn't even know there was a 2 and 3 until much later in life. My local video store had the first one that I rented a million times because I thought it was amazing. Or I thought it was a great horror movie, let me put it that way. 3, not so much. You know, the quality is a little shittier, the story's a little dumber, but it's a decent watch. And oddly enough, you can actually find the 2009 remake on YouTube currently. My favorite thing about this movie is the soundtrack. But that's not to say that I don't enjoy the movie. It does feature Edward Furlong, for those of you that know him from like Terminator 2 and stuff like that. He's much more grown up, and he's actually a drug dealer in that movie, but I just thought that was an interesting little tidbit. Linnea Quigley does do a little guest spot at the beginning of the movie too, and after you watch the original and watch that one, I'm sure you can guess who she is, but I won't spoil the surprise for you. So, That's really it. Like I said, I will link all these movies that I've talked about that you could find for free down below. I'm also going to link the Found Flicks video because if you have, I think that time the dude talked about Amazon Prime and Tubi, and I believe he's going to be talking about Hulu and Netflix in the coming week or two. If you have any of those, I will link those down below so that you can possibly get some good recommendations. I definitely scored some good ones. I didn't even know Tubi existed until he talked about it, so definitely going to be exploring that. But hope I've helped you find some good movies to watch during quarantine. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, I really appreciate it, and hopefully I will see you later. Bye.